safety car pulls into the pit lane. The red lights, which are on at the moment, are about to go out. They do so now, and away we go, and it's a great start for Josh Smith from pole position. Charles Hall is there on the outside. He can't make it through. Just looking to see if Joe Stables, well, he's taking it cautiously through the first corner. He's only got past one car so far, but the leaders making their way down towards Cascade. Oh, and there's an off there for Charles Hall, I'm afraid. Josh Smith has spun as well, the race leader. Charles Hall was off into the barriers, I'm afraid. The rest of them going past, but I would think that we're going to have at least a safety car situation there after that incident down there at Cascades. So we'll wait to see if the safety car is released out onto the circuit. The rest of the field heading off towards the Shell Oils corner for the moment. And in the lead of the race, is that Joe Locke, I think, that is leading the way then from Scott Mittell in second place as they make their way up to Britain's chicane.
Yeah, so two front row men there coming together, Josh Smith and Charles Hall. Charles Hall, a fairly sizable accident there for him, unfortunately, so the medical teams are on to him immediately, going very heavily into the barriers on the left-hand side of the race circuit. So let's hope that Charles is okay. The marshals and the medical team doing what they do best. But the race continues for now. The safety car boards are being prepared, so as we suspected, the safety car will come out with Joe Locke leading the motor race, but a very scary accident there, Ian.
Yeah, so Joe Locke turning his way out of Druids towards Lodge Corner then, so it's Scott Mittell in second place. It looks like, is that Ashley Hicklin in the 16 car in third position? There you can see the marshals with the flags and the safety car board, and the good news is that Charles Hall is out of the car. He's being helped out by the medics and the 750 Motor Club rescue crew, so great news to see that Charles Hall out of the car. There is a little bit of damage to the barriers that you can see in the background there. So there we have the race leader going past our window. Number 8, Joe Locke leads then. Second is number 27, Scott Mittell. In third place is number 16, that is Ashley Hicklin. In fourth place is number 80, Casper Jensen. In fifth place is number 3, which is James Brakel. There is Josh Smith, so he did continue, and he is running where? 16th. Joe Stables, by the way, is up to 12th place on lap number 1. So we did just lose the one driver after all of that on the opening lap with that heavy off for Charles Hall down there on the approach to Cascade, at Denton's really, that one.
Very good to, like you say, to see Charles Hall out the car. Great to see how strong, therefore, the Radical Sports cars are, because that was...
It stood up very well, didn't it? It would appear. I
think that's probably one of the biggest accidents we've seen in the Bikesports Championship. Not quite sure how they came together. Obviously, Josh Smith went for a spin as well to drop to the back of the field. So if we do get this race back underway, we've got a very interesting racing prospect with Joe Locke, Scott Mittell and Ash Hicklin at the front, and then two of our potentially quickest drivers, Joe Stables and Josh Smith, much further back. Notice that Chris Preen, he's not here, is he? The second man in Class B. So I expect that means Joe Stables has wrapped up the Class B Championship to start in this race. So, but of course, Joe Stables is looking for that overall title, isn't he, again, that he won last year?
Yes, he is. So Joe Stables won the championship last year. As I say, he's in Class B, so he's scoring a separate set of points to those that Josh Smith is going for. So points scored within the class based on overall finishing position. The difference between the classes, as we're saying, Class A is for tuned engines and Class B is for production engines, although if you look at the pace, there's actually not a lot to choose between, in particular with Joe being such a quick driver. So they all have to run naturally aspirated 4-stroke bike engines. The gearbox has to be as per the standard configuration, but wheels and tyres are free. And they run a 14-round championship in the RLM Racing Bikesports Championship over 6 meetings. They started the season at Donington Park, they moved to the Silverstone National Circuit, then they've had triple headers at Anglesey and the International Circuit at Silverstone, before concluding with 2 more double headers here at Oulton Park and at Snetterton to round out the season. Last time Bikesports were here was last season, and it was Phil Cooper that took the first of the wins on that occasion, but Joe Stables did win race number 2. Cooper also winning when the championship was here previously, which was 2 years earlier in 2016, the autograss race that Phil Cooper did a couple of seasons in, also in Bikesports racing, but not racing this year. So we still have the cars behind the safety car coming up to complete lap 2. Then of course the order will not have changed. So still number 8 it is Joe Locke that leads then from number 27 Scott Patel in second place, number 16 Ash Hicklin in third position, in fourth place number 80 Casper Jensen, in fifth place number 3 James Brakel, in sixth place number 95 Richard Stables, in seventh place number 4 that is Tony Barwell, and in eighth place is number 48 Andy Chittenden, ninth 24 Ian Charles, and rounding out the top 10 is number 44 Andrew Kimpton.
It's different competitors for Joe Stables within Class B this weekend, isn't it? With Casper Jensen making his debut, I think, with the 750 Motor Club, and James Brakel returning to the series, former champion, I think.
Yes.
James Brakel, and runs lots of cars in the series. Different drivers for Stables to race against. It'll be interesting to see how their pace is during the course of this race, if we get back underway, which hopefully we'll do. The recovery of the Charles Hall car is ongoing at the moment, and obviously taken a massive front-end impact, but as Ian said, the important parts of the car seem to stay pretty much as they should done. Great to see the marshals were straight on the case as well, weren't they, and doing making sure the extraction wasn't too quick, but letting Charles Hall sort of do things at his own pace, as he seems to be fairly okay as he got out of the car himself.
The medical car heading back to the medical centre as well, presumably now with Charles Hall aboard it, so he'll be checked over, as is absolutely routine after any kind of contact incident like that. There will be a check over, especially these days with so much caution over concussion and that kind of thing, just to make sure that the driver is absolutely okay, and we will certainly wish Charles Hall all the best there.
We spoke about lap records in the other categories, didn't we? 1 minute 38.2, Lee Torrey's record dropped from that being a couple of years ago. Last year.
Yeah.
But in qualifying, Josh Smith was 4 seconds quicker than that. And I think that just goes to show this year how much more competitive the championship has become, hasn't it? With the addition of Josh Smith, Charles Hall and Scott Mattel, really bringing them lap records everywhere.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, Josh Smith has come in having won a number of championships elsewhere. The OSS Championship, I think, he's won 3 times. I think that's right. And also the Castle Combe Special GT Championship, where that allowed sports racing cars in as well, which it doesn't any longer. Josh, who's 30 years old, is the project manager for a motorsport engineering course at Bridgewater and Taunton College, and the car, which is known as Poppets, is owned by the college and run by the students.
That was a fear he wouldn't be out this weekend, wasn't there, with the budget that the college has to get that new engine in, because it was a significant engine failure at Silverstone. There was nowhere that was going to be repaired, so it had to be a full new engine. Now, I noticed the Charles Hall car had gone off down the escape, down the roads back to the paddock, so I wonder if we might be able to race at the end of this lap here. And we've had 8 minutes of the 18 minutes plus a lap that we have in the Bikesports Championship, so we're just
safety car lights out.
That's a good going, isn't it? That's much more for the race than we expected.
Well, I think probably we were expecting more than a safety car as well, but that's what we've got. So Joe Locke now in probably a relatively unfamiliar position for him in terms of controlling the pace in the lead of the race. He's got Scott Mitchell, the treble winner at Silverstone, right behind him, but a circuit which he doesn't think is going to suit his car quite as much as the fast Silverstone circuit. Some much more slower corners here. Over the line they come to restart the race. Lap 4 gets underway then, and it's Joe Locke leading from Scott Mittel, Ashley Hicklin, and a challenge further back. That's Casper Jensen and James Brakel.
And that was, of course, for the Class B lead as well. There's Joe Stables going up the inside of Doug Carter to go 11th. Runs a little wide, but that's okay. For the lead, though, Joe Locke is hanging on. Remember, he went off in qualifying, so probably has more pace than his qualifying time would suggest, and is ahead of Scott Mattel now in that PR6. Joe Locke won a race at Snetterton last year, didn't he? But that was his only win in this car, this PR6 that's run by Tim Gray Motorsport. There's a lot of cars like this are in the 750 Motor Club paddock. The former champion, of course, Tim Gray. He's getting away, isn't he, from Scott Mattel? So Mattel with these slow corners leading off to uphill sections, not suiting the smaller engine car, but through the chicanes, really nimble there. The Mattel able to chuck it through the corners was Scott, and that's allowed him to get away from Ash Hicklin, who was on his turn, and bringing him back towards Joe Locke, who started racing, I think, Honda Civics. So very different car, this Radical.
Yeah, absolutely, and he's a Northwest lad as well, so it is home circuit here at Oulton Park this weekend. Green flags waving, of course, as the cars are still on their first lap after the safety car period. So it's these two going away. Ashley Hicklin not really able to stay with the top two as they make their way through Druids and on towards Lodge Corner. What will be interesting to see is the progress of Joe Stables and Josh Smith here, of course, as they make their way up from 12th and 16th places respectively.
In the background, I reckon James Brakel had got past Casper Jensen for the Class B lead, but for the overall lead, the Class A lead, Scott Mattel's right back on terms with Joe Locke in the second half of this lap. There are the Class B leaders, with Brakel now ahead of Jensen as they make their way off into Old Hall with the Class A car. That's Joe Stables' dad, Richard, behind. They go through Joe Stables. He is 9th. Not so much progress for Josh Smith, who we don't know if he's got a damaged car or not. He is in 13th, so that's the progression for those two drivers on this first restarted lap. There's Joe Locke, our race leader, in through Island Bend.
Yeah, so Locke leading by 0.3 of a second at the start of the lap. It looks like a little bit more than that now as they turn their way through Shell Oil's corner and up towards Britain's for the 5th time now in this race. There's still just over 7 minutes to go, plus 1 lap.
That first lap here for Joe Locke was just 0.02 of a second away from the lap record.
So we'll see. I'm sure he can improve on that this time then. Scott Mattel, though, in that Class C car, and Scott said he'd be much happier just sort of competing for overall Class A honours, wouldn't he, than racing effectively in a class of his own, because we've seen that car can take overall wins. It's the Mattel that he and his father have continued to develop. Running this season, of course, in Bikesports, in Slicks and Wings guys. There's sister cars that run in the RGB Sports 1000 for more standard variants of the Mattel chassis. Up towards Lodge they come then to complete lap number 5 of the race, and it's nose to tail through that part of the circuit. Looks like Mattel does have an advantage. This end of the track, which Joe is able to reverse as they head down towards the Shell corner. Yeah,
back through Druid, Scott Mattel able to use the extra downforce of the MC41 over the PR6, but unable to go through. Yes, a new lap record there for Joe Locke, 1:37.9.
And we've had a change for 5th place, with Richard Stables getting ahead of Casper Jensen as they went into Old Hall corner that time. And meanwhile, Josh Smith now has come through in 10th place and Joe Stables 8th at the end of lap 5.
So that's put Stables 4th in class. Josh Smith is also 4th in class, so both of them in the same position, scoring the same amount of points.
Yeah.
We're picking up some of the back runners there. There's Charles Adrian, who's always a regular, isn't he, in the Bikesports Championship in his SR3. Meanwhile, out of Shell Oils, and there is Richard Stables ahead of Casper Jensen, as Ian alluded to. That happened at Old Hall. Richard Stables there, car number 95, going after James Brakel now as they turn their way through the British chicane. The PR6 quicker through that corner for Stables. Should have a bit more power too in the tuned car, and you can see that clearly there as he pulls up alongside and goes through on the inside line into his lap ahead of James Brakel, hopping over the curb.
Yeah, Richards has been the champion in Bikesports as well in the past. I think about 2011 it was that he took the championship title, but yes, in that tuned car he's able to get ahead of those two production engined machines and get up into 4th place overall as they now climb up towards Druids. And it's Joe Stables that's the next car through, I think, now in 7th place. I think he's ahead of Tony Barwell that you can see there as well. So Joe making progress, but now I've got side by side for the lead going into Old Hall corner. Scott Mattel looking down the inside and he's gone through to take it. Scott Mattel in the number 27 car gets the lead away now from Joe Locke in number 8, and we've had a moment too for the number 17 machine as well. That's Miles Drew.
Okay, so he rejoins, but let's see if Joe Locke can re-challenge. We've seen he's quicker in the first part of the lap than the leader, the new leader, Scott Mattel. There's the Class B leaders together, James Brakel and Casper Jensen, who are only 4 seconds now ahead of Joe Stables. Joe Stables could still win Class B in this race with something like 3 laps to go. There's Ash Hicklin, he is in 3rd, just up the road are the 2 leaders that are still together, but Scott Mattel is ahead of Joe Locke. But we're coming up to them chicanes now, which have the hills after them, and that is what Scott was worried about, with the smaller engine picking up off the off the slow corners, the second gear corners, climbing the hills. But he's really quick through the British chicane, carrying good momentum there, and that might be what saves him by the time he gets to Hislops.
Yeah, he's still ahead, isn't he, by a good few car lengths in hand over Joe Locke in 2nd place. He's just a little bit scrappier thought through Hislops and Knickerbrook that time, running over the curb there on the exit of Knickerbrook. Now climbing up Clay Hill once again, just under 4 minutes plus 1 lap of this race left to go. Has Joe Locke got anything up his sleeve? He's in a 1:37.97. Mattel at 1:38.02, so very little to choose between it in terms of fastest laps.
But that's kind of because Mattel was stuck behind Joe Lock prior to now. So let's see what Mattel can do on this, the 7th lap of the race. And perhaps Mattel picking up a bit of pace since qualifying this morning. Let's see as he crosses the line to complete that lap. A 1:38.2, so perhaps that overtake, he couldn't quite fully maximise that lap, but he has pulled out this smaller margin over Joe Lock. Ash Hicklin through in 3rd place, hasn't quite got the pace of these two cars. Then it's Richard Stables in 4th. Class B leader is still James Braker ahead of Casper Jensen, but they're both being caught hand over fist by Joe Stables, who's in the 39s, a couple of seconds quicker than them. So the Class B race is on with a few laps to go in.
Yeah, that's looking like that could be pretty spicy as that goes on, as we're watching the two leaders turning their way through Shell Oil's corner, still separated by less than a second. It's number 27 Scott Mattel that's leading. There you can see the 44 car of Andrew Kimpton just behind the stalwarts of this championship and 750 Motor Club generally. That's number 5 Doug Carter, used to compete in the RGBs before he moved over to Bikesports several years ago now in that radical. Here are the leaders, 27 Scott Mattel and 8 Joe Lock, Class C and Class A respectively, so they're scoring points in different classes here. They turn their way through the chicane at Hislops and now through Knickerbrook. But I reckon here that Scott Mattel's probably got enough to keep ahead of Joe Lock, and the battle a bit further back is the one that we'll need to try and keep an eye on towards the end of this race, which is for Class B. James Braker number 3, number 8 Casper Jensen, and Joe Stables number 98, because I imagine that Joe Stables is pretty much with them now.
Scott Mattel does carry a lot of speed through Druids. That's very quick right-hander using all that downforce that Mattel cars have put into that car. So we have 2, maybe 3 laps at the end of this as Scott Mattel crosses the line. And yeah, he's not improving on those early laps as when he was chasing Joe Lock, interestingly. So the gap is a second between them. Here's Class B. The 3 cars are together. So Brakel, Jensen and Stables absolutely together. The 3 Class B cars then come out of Lodge Corner, and it is James Brakel still ahead of Casper Jensen with Joe Stables behind as they dive in towards Old Hall Corner. Just a second between the 3 of them. So a great battle that is in. They've got Josh Smith chasing them in his Class A car.
Yeah, so they're heading down towards Cascades once again. We have got 1 minute left to go in this race, plus 1 lap. As we're watching coming past us now, the number 48 car, that's Andy Chittenden in 10th place. Then 11th place, we've got number 24 Ian Charles. In 12th place, it's the number 5 car of Doug Carter. And the rest of the field making their way through. It's Scott Mattel still leading the way, though, by a second from Joe Lock in 2nd place, as they are now making their way around the circuit. And it's, I can see, looks like still Ashley Hicklin there in 3rd place. Then it's a bit of a gap back to the 4th place car, which is Richard Stables, as they drop down from Hilltop towards Hislops and Knickerbrook. And then you've got the fight going on for 5th place, and it's Joe Stables now that I think is ahead of Casper Jensen. So Joe Stables is up into 6th position.
Interestingly, that Josh Smith, despite seemingly not having any traffic on that last lap, isn't quicker than the overall leaders. I wonder if he has got damage from that first lap incident with Charles Hall. But across the line comes Scott Mattel, still being chased by Joe Lock as they get the last lap board. So 1 further lap to go in this race, just a second between the 2 leaders, with Ash Hicklin coming through in 3rd position. He is further 8 seconds behind the 2 leaders you see on your screen there as they go down the avenue, Mattel and Lock. With Hicklin chasing, but who is ahead in Class B? It is Joe Stables. He's got ahead and he's pulling away immediately from James Braker and Casper Jensen. So a great drive this has been from Joe Stables.
And now Josh Smith in amongst the thick of it as well. He is there and he is out of shape there, Josh.
Oh no, the damage. His left-hand corner. You see the bodywork is very much ajar on that car, so there certainly is damage, and that's probably what's hampering his lap times to be 4 seconds slower than qualifying.
But he's up to 6th place now, though, but he's not really going to make any more progress in Class A because he's about 9 seconds behind Richard Stables, who's the next Class A car, though, but he is 3rd in class. Here is our race leader, Scott Mattel, though, 1.2 seconds clear of Joe Lock at the moment as they turn their way through Hislops and Knickerbrook for the final time in this race. So it's Joe Lock that was leading for much of the race, and it will still pick up maximum points in Class A because Scott Mattel, as we've been saying, in a different class. I say he will, but he's dropping back further and further now from Scott Mattel as they work the final half a lap, heading up towards Druids Corner now, and then in towards the right-hander at Lodge. but we are waiting for them to come back into our view. I can see them heading along the straight towards Lodge Corner now, and it is Mittel that's going to come through to take the checkered flag, and Scott Mittel wins round number 11 of the RLM Racing Bikesports Championship from in second place, Joe Locke.
4 in a row then for Mittel, which I don't think he expected after qualifying this morning. Ash Hickling comes through in third, then we'll have Richard Stables, and then it should be his son Joe to win Class B in impressive fashion, which brings him, I think, pretty much up to championship now, with Josh Smith not scoring the amount of points he would have liked. There goes Joe Stables in across the line to win Class B quite convincingly in the end, with James Brakel. He's second in that class. Between the two of them, with Josh Smith's Class A car, and Casper Jensen's gone missing, has he, on this last lap of the race, the car that was third in Class B.
Not yet come through, has he? So that means it's going to be Tony Barwell, number 4, that comes through to take 9th place. To 8th place, I should say, and then there is Casper Jensen. He's got some grass stuck on the front spoiler of that car, so he's had a moment somewhere. So he comes through in 9th, having lost 20 seconds on that lap. And Andy Chittenden rounds out the top 10.
An eventful race, wasn't it, Ian?
Well, it was. There was it seems like longer ago than about 20 minutes when that race started, with that big accident for Charles Hall. I think it was actually the only retirement from the race after all of that. So it's very heavy off for Charles, and we do wish him well, of course. But Scott Mittel probably getting a win there that I don't think he really expected coming into today.
Absolutely not. You can't really look at championship for him, because he's just scoring the same points every time out. So he's just looking for those overall results, and being 3 seconds slower in qualifying, he certainly wasn't expecting that. He had to work for it, despite the top 2 going off. He really had to battle Joe Locke. That great move into Old Hull, wasn't it, up the inside? It was a really strong move, and then he just eked away from Joe Locke ever so slightly. There's very similar pace between the two of them.
We've just seen the last 2 cars come over the line as well here. Charles Adrian and Miles Drew, 16th and 17th place, but it was very close up to the line, separated only by 18/100ths of a second, with Miles Drew having a quicker final lap of those 2.
Of course, a great recovery drive from Joe Stables to come from the back to win his class still, and Joe Stables will have to do similar this afternoon. So really a strong drive there from Joe Stables. Maybe without Chris Preen, that's kind of helped him out here. But James Brakel, he's no slouch, is he? Who Stables caught and passed. So a great job there from him too. And 5th overall is a good effort. So the winners head in, or all the runners running back into Parc Fermé, and we shall pick up. I don't know if we're going for top 3 or class winners this time, Ian.
We'll wait and see see what we're able to get with Jacob, but it'll be interesting to hear from whoever he manages to get hold of. A reminder that we are going into the lunch break next, and we're due to get racing back underway in about half an hour's time, but we'll see if there's a little bit of a shuffle on the timetable. If there is, we'll try and bring you news of that, but it may be a little bit delayed, as we're a bit delayed going into the lunch break by about half an hour or so. So possibly there'll be a delay to the restart of racing as well. And after that, we'll come back with the Club Enduro. Josh?
We'll try and work it out over lunch if Joe Stables actually wrapped up the title in that race as well, because if he hasn't, he can't have much to do in the race later on. So
no, I don't think he will.
That's a good run there for Stables. That's 10 class wins in a row for him. The only race he didn't win was one he retired in, which was the first race at Donington, which was won by Chris Preen. Joe Locke, that's his first win of the season. He's had that's his 8th podium, though, in the class. So he's been a regular class podium finisher, Joe Locke, just the one second place, which came in the first race at Donington. But now a class winner is Joe Locke, and Scott Mittel, 4th win of the season for him, and 9th class win.
I don't think it quite wraps it up yet for Joe Stables. I think he'll need to do that in the next race later on.
But not much.
No, because he did have one DNF at the start of the year, and that's the one thing that's sort of holding him back from having wrapped it up in that particular race.
Okay.
So I can see that Jacob is ready down in the pit lane. Hopefully very shortly he'll have some drivers brought his way for a quick chat. And then I know that Jacob will be heading off to talk to some of our Club Enduro drivers before that race gets underway. But I can see that we have Scott Mittel having now made his way down towards Jacob Harris. So we will head down to Jacob Harris, and he's going to speak with our overall race winner.
Down here at the podium, we've got your winner, Scott Mittel. Scott, congratulations, a great move for the lead down into that first corner. Yeah, Joe made a little mistake over the back, and it was sort of building all up, and I thought I got a good run on him out of the last corner. I thought, yeah, this is the time to go.
And being down here in the pits, I did notice. I think it's your dad here with you today. Anyone else you got supporting you?
Yeah, mum and sister are here, and the wife back home. So yeah, massive thanks to Dad. It's like he does so much of the car, so we wouldn't be here without him, definitely.
He certainly looked happy with that one. Can you repeat it this afternoon?
We'll give it a go. I mean, Josh will be hard to beat if he sat on the front row again. So we'll have a go.
All the best for that, and see you later, hopefully.
Cheers, thank you.
Okay, next up is that second place man just mentioned by Scott, Joe. So close.
Yeah, I know, I just couldn't hold it. I'd like to say thanks to Tim as well, obviously, because I never, ever say it on video, so I'd like to say it now. I just hope Charles and Josh are all right as well. But yeah, no, I'm happy with that, but we knew we had more pace in the car, and the car didn't feel as good as it did this morning. So I think now we'll go back to the garage, do a few tweaks, and then race 2 should be even quicker.
You got anything particular in mind? Anything you want to change?
Yeah, for some reason the front end understeer seemed to go worse that race. I don't know whether the temperatures made it, the track a lot warmer, so the tyres have got too hot. Maybe the safety car didn't help, but I'm not sure. So we'll have a look at the data and see what we can do.
Nevertheless, a class win, not quite a wasted morning.
No, I'm still chuffed with that, and we needed a win to keep us in the championship contention. So, it's one of them, and I hope I can go even quicker next race.
Congratulations, Joe. Thanks for speaking with us. Who's next? David. We have third overall, Ash. Sorry, I didn't catch the surname.
Hicklin.
Ash Hicklin. Ash, tell us about your race.
Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely, I loved every second. Sad to see Charles end up in the barrier. Not the way he probably wanted to end his race, and not the way any of us wanted to see him end his race. I was lucky just to miss Josh, to be fair, when he spun, and just kept plodding along and pushing as much as I could. But yeah, car felt good.
Did you enjoy yourself out there?
Absolutely, every second, as always. Always got to enjoy it, haven't you? That's the main thing.
That's what 750 is all about: low cost, enjoyable racing, and as long as we're still providing that.
Yeah, definitely, 100%.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ash. Thanks for talking to us.
Cheers.
See you again soon. And last but not least, we have Class B winner Joe Staples. Joe, come on over here and talk to us. And 5th overall, I believe.
Yeah, first in class again. I mean, we had a bit of problem qualifying, where the ignition coil wasn't plugged in, so we were only running 3 cylinders, and also the auto blipper line had come out, so we didn't change down gears. But the car's been running pretty well, running pretty well all month, so as it's been. So we're happy with it.
Can it run any better this afternoon?
I could run better. The car, no, it's pretty good. It's up there. Just got to find the time with me now. Get used to the track more.
You not been to Oulton Park before?
Oh no, 4 weeks ago I was in the Radical Challenge, and I came out with a 3rd and a 5th.
You enjoying it? Is it one of your favourites?
Oh yeah, it's definitely a good circuit. It's definitely one of the trickiest, which makes it quite enjoyable compared to like Silverstone, which is just all like flat curbs. Everything's got some really old school hard curbs, so it makes good racing.
Love to hear it. And what are your hopes this afternoon? Top 5 obviously overall today, and you've won your class. Can you go any better?
Hope for top 4, top 3 maybe, if I'm lucky. See what happens.
All right then, well all the best for that, and hopefully see you again this afternoon.
Thank you.